My name is Jada Calloway. I'm 34 years old and I find hidden money for a living. I just never expected to find it hiding under my own name. Last April, my mom stood in her kitchen, smoothed a travel brochure flat on the counter and announced to my whole family, "The flights are $2,500 each. If you can't afford it, stay home." I simply nodded. I drove back to my condo. 26 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a fraud alert. $10,014. 4 business class tickets to Turks and Caicos. None of them were mine. I tapped dispute charges and locked my card. 30 minutes later, my mom was banging on my door. But here's what none of them knew as her fist hit that door. The flights were the smallest thing my family had ever bought with my name. What I found over the next few weeks would put 3 people I love in federal handcuffs, at a party with 200 witnesses. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories, where quiet people finally get loud through the choices they make. If stories about family, money, and hard-won boundaries speak to you, drop a comment below and be sure to subscribe. I watched her through the peephole for a second before I opened up. Vivian Calloway does not knock like a woman in trouble. She knocks like a woman collecting rent. She swept past me into my own living room, coat still buttoned, and said, "Call the bank. Tell them it was a mistake." No hello. No apology. I asked her if she'd used my card, and she looked at me the way you look at a cashier who's counting too slow. "I used the family card, Jada. The one on the airline account. You embarrassed this family over a seat assignment." I told her there was no family card. There was my card, with my name on it, attached to a profile I'd used once to fly my dad to a back specialist. She waved that off like smoke. "The trip was the kickoff for their 40th anniversary year," she explained. "Everyone was going. The Hendersons went to Aruba for their 35th, and Charlotte Henderson still brought it up at church." Then she said the sentence I was raised on, the one stitched into every Easter outfit and every leased car of my childhood. "We never let them see us struggle." I said no. I said it politely, the way I'd say it to an auditor. She stood there a moment, studying me, and then she left without slamming the door, which scared me more than slamming would have. Through the peephole, I watched her stop in the hallway, pull out her phone, and dial someone from memory. Her voice came through low and flat calm. She locked the card. "Move it to the other one." I stood there in my own quiet hallway wondering, what other one? You should know what I do, because it matters. I'm a forensic accountant. Banks hire my firm when money goes missing and everyone swears they don't know how. I read bank statements the way other people read diaries. I've testified in federal court, hand on a Bible, about other families' lies. My mother tells church folks I'm in finance, which is true the way saying a surgeon is in knives is true. And here's the part that stings. I already knew better. When I was 19, a store card showed up on my credit report. Opened in my name, maxed in my name, missed payments in my name. My mom called it building my credit, baby. I spent 2 years of campus job paychecks burying that debt. Then I did what the 19-year-olds of most families never think to do. I froze my credit at all 3 bureaus: Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. A freeze means nobody can open anything new in your name, not even you, without a PIN. I set fraud alerts. I checked my accounts the way other women check their locks. In my family, I became the designated calculator. Cousin short on tuition? Ask Jada, she's good with numbers. Uncle behind on a car note? Jada will look at it. I balanced their messes quietly for 15 years and told myself that was love, with a spreadsheet attached. So that night, after my mother's heels clicked out of my building, I pulled up the airline profile and confirmed what I suspected. My card had been stored there for 3 years since Dad's back surgery consult. Then I sat down and checked whether my credit freeze, my locked door, was still locked. It wasn't. To explain what I found, you need the picture first, because the picture is the whole point. My parents live in a brick colonial in Beverly, on Chicago's south side, with hydrangeas my mother replaces the moment they brown. My dad, Raymond, supervised CTA rail crews for 30 years until his back gave out at 62, and the pension came in smaller than the plans did. My mom runs the administrative office at Greater Bethel 3 days a week and runs the rest of the world the other 4. My brother Darnell, 38, calls himself an entrepreneur, which so far has meant a vending machine business, a trucking venture, and a smoothie franchise that each died younger than the last. There's a leased Lincoln in the driveway. There's a third-row pew at Greater Bethel that everyone understands to be ours. My grandmother, Ruth, my mom's mother, 84, sharp as a tax deadline, lives on the first floor of that colonial and misses nothing. That spring, the family project was the 40th anniversary gala. Not a party. A gala. The Marquette Ballroom, string quartet, 200 guests, invitations on cardstock you could shingle a roof with. At church, women grab my arm about it. Your mother has outdone herself. Your family is just blessed. Blessed was the word for it, since nobody could say employed. I smiled and did quiet math in my head, a bad habit of mine. The ballroom, the flowers, the Lincoln, the pension. And the numbers didn't reach. That week, Grandma Ruth called me, voice low, phone cupped. Check on your mail, baby. The kind that comes to this house. Things been coming here for you for about a year now. Federal law entitles you to free copies of your credit reports. All 3 bureaus, 1 official website. I pulled them at my kitchen table that night with a legal pad and the good calculator. The way I'd do it for a paying client. 15 years of my own careful history scrolled by, and then the strangers showed up. A credit card opened 14 months ago. Limit $12,000, balance $11,400. A second card opened a year ago. Limit $9,000, nearly full. Both mailed to an address I hadn't lived at since college, the Brick Colonial in Beverly. So that was the other one. When I locked my card, my mother simply moved the tickets onto a card that had my name on it and her hands all over it. But cards weren't what made me set the pen down. Under mortgage accounts, where my whole life there had been nothing but my condo, sat a home loan. Refinance, closed 14 months ago. $210,000 against the house in Beverly. Borrowers, Raymond Calloway, Vivian Calloway, and a co-borrower named Jada M. Calloway, whose income and spotless credit had apparently qualified the whole thing. Status, 60 days delinquent. I sat very still. My freeze had been lifted 14 months ago, the same season I realized that my mother started calling me her blessing at church. Somewhere between the hydrangeas and the string quartet, my family had taken out $500,000 wearing my name and then stopped paying it back. 2 questions sat on my legal pad by midnight, underlined twice. Where did $210,000 go? And how does anyone walk through a frozen door without breaking it? The second question took 1 evening and 3 phone calls to answer. And I want you to hear it, because it could happen to you. To lift a credit freeze, the bureau mails a PIN letter to the address on file. My file, from a form I'd filled out at 19, still listed my parents' house. The PIN went to Beverly. Grandma Ruth's mail, the kind that comes to this house. Next, the bureau verifies your identity with security questions. Mother's maiden name, Ellison. First street you lived on, Loomis. Name of your 3rd grade teacher, make and model of your first car. City where you were born. I sat with the recovery log in front of me and understood something that made my hands go cold. Those questions are designed to stop a stranger. My mother is not a stranger. She is the answer key. She didn't have to break into my identity. She built it. And she kept a key. The contact email on my bureau file had been changed 14 months ago to an address 1 letter off from mine, which is why no alert ever reached me. That's not a mom borrowing a credit card in a pinch. That's structure. That's somebody quietly rerouting the plumbing of my life and betting I'd never look under the sink. I was still staring at that fake email address when my phone lit up. A text from my mother. Sugar sweet. No mention of the door, the bank, or the tickets. Sunday dinner, 4 in the afternoon. Wear something nice. We're taking gala planning photos for the church page. They didn't know yet. They didn't know that the family calculator had finally started running their numbers. Wednesday morning, my managing partner stuck his head into my office, and the walls of this thing moved closer. Every year, the experts at my firm go through re-vetting, fingerprints, licenses, and a full credit check because no jury trusts a fraud examiner who can't manage her own accounts. Mine was already in the queue. Within about 5 weeks, a background company would pull my file and find 2 maxed cards and a mortgage 60 days past due. None of it explained. I knew exactly how that reads on paper, because reading paper is my job. It reads like a woman hiding debt. It reads like a witness the other side would eat alive. The federal case I'd spent 8 months on, a nice, ugly embezzlement matter where my testimony mattered, would go to someone else, and clients don't come back to the expert who got quietly pulled. So understand, doing nothing was no longer on the menu. That afternoon, I did the lawful, boring, powerful thing. I wrote the loan servicer, identified myself as a person named on the loan, and requested the complete origination file. They have to give it to you. Most people never ask. While I waited, I built what I always build. A timeline, hour by hour, dollar by dollar. Except this time the victim column had my own name in it, which I kept rereading like a typo. The file arrived Thursday in a fat envelope, 9 pages of application and disclosures. Page 9 held 3 signatures. One was a stranger's hand pretending to be mine. Wrong pen lifts, wrong pressure, wrong everything. The other 2 signatures I had known my whole life. I'd watched those 2 hands carve turkey. One of them had taught me to write my own name. I do signature comparison professionally, so I did it professionally, even at my own kitchen table at 1 in the morning. The fake Jada was traced slow. You can see the wobble where a forger's hand creeps instead of glides. Whoever signed me couldn't decide where my J starts. Verdict: forged, and provably so. My father's signature was real. Raymond Calloway, co-borrower, in the patient, upright hand that used to sign my report cards. My mother's was real too, and confident, and that one, I'd expected. It was Dad's that sat in my chest like a swallowed stone. I'd been carrying a quiet theory that he didn't know, that this was Mom and Darnell's arithmetic and my father was just the man who naps through storms. Page 9 ended that theory, and below all 3 signatures sat a notary block, stamped and sealed, certifying that Jada M. Calloway had personally appeared, shown ID, and signed in front of a licensed notary on an afternoon when I could prove I'd been in a deposition downtown. The notary's name was Terrence Vaughn. I knew that name. I'd heard it across Thanksgiving turkey for 2 years, in my brother's mouth. Always shiny. My guy Terrence. Terrence says the smart money's in property. Terrence Vaughn, according to 20 minutes of searching, was a mortgage loan officer whose license in Georgia had been surrendered a few years back, who then resurfaced in Illinois with a notary stamp and a taste for family deals. So there it was, laid out on my table like a museum exhibit. My mother's will, my father's silence, my brother's guy, and my name. The one thing all of them had needed and none of them had asked for. Grief has stages. So does a fraud exam, and I know those better. So that's the map I used. I took 3 personal days, closed my blinds, and worked my own family like a case file, because the alternative was to sit in the dark and feel it. Step 1. Document everything. I photographed page 9 under raking light. I ordered certified copies of the recorded mortgage from the Cook County recorder. I printed 14 months of statements from the 2 cards that wore my name, and I highlighted every merchant. Step 2. Follow the money, because money never lies about where it went. That's the entire science of my profession, and it is a comfort, in a bleak way. The refinance had funded on a Tuesday. By Friday of that same week, the outbound wires started walking. Step 3 was the one that mattered, and I almost missed it because I was tired and it was 2 in the morning. Notaries in Illinois keep records, and recorded documents are public. I ran Terrence Vaughn's notary stamp through the county's records the way I'd run any suspect vendor. His seal turned up on other family refinances. Same lender channels, same style, different last names, different neighborhoods, and on several of them, a co-borrower with beautiful credit who lived somewhere else entirely. My screen, at 2 in the morning, looked less like my parents' bad decision and more like somebody's business model. I made a folder and named it the way I name client folders, neutral and cold. Vaughn T. Pattern analysis. Because typing mom would have finished me. I also left the thawed freeze exactly as I'd found it, on purpose. Lock the file and the subject knows you're coming, but leave it open under fresh monitoring, and every new move they make files itself as evidence. Then I called my father. Not my mother. Not yet. I asked him to meet me for breakfast, just the two of us. He went quiet, then said, Saturday. The place on Western. He didn't ask what it was about. That told me plenty. The diner on Western Avenue has been serving the same coffee since I was in braids, and my dad ordered his eggs the same way he has my whole life, over hard, like a man buying time. I laid one photocopy on the table between us. Just page 9, folded to the signatures. Raymond Calloway looked at it for a long, long minute, and I watched 30 years of posture leave his shoulders. Your mother handles the papers, Jay, he said finally. I asked if that was supposed to be an answer. He rubbed his face. The pension wasn't what they promised. The house needed a roof. Darnell said Terrence could set it up so it didn't touch you. Just your numbers, baby. Just on paper. You weren't using them. Just my numbers? My father, who taught me to check the oil and count my change, telling me his daughter's name was an idle asset the family had merely put to work. He swore they'd meant to pay it back before I ever saw it. He swore the late payments were temporary, that Darnell had money coming. And then my father, whom I had never once heard beg, begged me. Not for forgiveness, for scheduling. Whatever you're going to do, Jay, don't do it before the anniversary. Your mother's been planning that night for 2 years. It would kill her. I sat with that. Not, we'll make it right. Not, I'm sorry we spent your name. Don't do it before the anniversary. Even my father's apology came with a seating chart. I paid the check. Of course I paid the check, and drove back north on Western with both hands tight on the wheel, understanding for the first time that I wasn't in a family. I was in a budget. $210,000 leaves footprints, and I followed all of them, line by line, until the whole shape of it stood up and looked at me. $68,000 went to rescue Darnell's smoothie franchise, which died anyway, 8 months later, without a funeral. $52,000 cleared my parents' old credit cards, the quiet ones, the ones the church never saw. $31,000 paid off the Lincoln, because apparently you can't host a 40th anniversary out of a Honda. Roof repairs at least were real. I found the contractor's invoice and felt weirdly grateful to him for existing. And then the entry that made me put my pen down and walk one lap around my kitchen island. $9,000, deposit, the Marquette Ballroom. Dated one day, after my mother stood in her kitchen and told me, if you can't afford it, stay home. She'd said that sentence to my face, while my name was down payment on the room. But the detail that truly told me where I stood was smaller and uglier. For more than a year, the minimum payments on the 2 fraudulent cards, the cards wearing my name, had been paid out of the refinance money that also wore my name. My debt was making the payments on my debt. The picture was eating itself and mailing me the bill. I sat back down and looked at my whiteboard, at the tidy arrows connecting my parents' pride to my brother's schemes, to a corrupt notary to my own signature, forged mid-wobble, and I said out loud to nobody, the thing I'd been circling for days. This is not a misunderstanding. This is a system. And systems, unlike misunderstandings, don't stop on their own. I went to Sunday dinner. I know how that sounds. But a good examiner interviews the subject before the subject knows she's a subject. And besides, some doomed little lobby of my heart still wanted to be wrong. The house smelled like roast chicken and lemon polish. My mother had gala folders at every place setting, color-coded, my name on the lavender one, programs, seating, and a sticky note that said finalize florist balance in her lovely looping hand, assigned to me the way you'd assign a bill to a department. Halfway through dinner, I set down my fork and asked, evenly, Mom, the refinance on this house, whose idea was that? The table went still. Darnell's fork stopped midair. My father studied his greens like scripture. And my mother didn't even blink. She patted her mouth with her napkin and looked at me with something close to pity. Family money is family money, sweetheart. Everything you have started at this table. That degree started here. That downtown condo started here. Your name came from us. We just used what was ours. She said it the way you'd explain gravity to a child. No shame, no flicker, a whole cosmology delivered over roast chicken, and the terrifying part was how calm it was. How settled. Like she was reading me the house rules I'd somehow missed for 34 years. From the kitchen doorway, my grandmother's voice cut through, dry as a receipt. Her name ain't a checkbook, Vivian. My mother didn't turn her head. Mama, we're eating. Let me pause my own story right here and ask you something, one woman to another. If you have ever sat at a family table doing silent math, how much of you they've spent? What's left? What you still owe on a debt you never signed for? I want to hear about it in the comments, and if you're new here, subscribe, because what my mother did next took family money somewhere I never saw coming. She walked me to my car after dinner, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear like I was 9, and said, "Soft as a lullaby, fix that little card business before Turks, baby. Don't make me ask twice." Here's the part I need you to witness, because later, people who weren't there would tell the story differently. I offered them a way out. I spent a full evening drafting it like a settlement, because that's the shape my love takes. The accounts get closed, the loan gets restructured out of my name, lawfully, with the lender's fraud team kept out of it. My parents sign a private acknowledgement, not for a courtroom, for my file, and a repayment plan built gently around Dad's pension. No police, no church gossip. The fixer's last, best fix. I printed 2 copies and drove to Beverly on a Tuesday while Dad had physical therapy, because I wanted my mother's answer, not the family's. Vivian read the first page standing at her kitchen counter, and I watched her face do something I'd never seen. Flush. Actually flush. Before she folded the papers over once and tore them, twice, neatly, like closing an envelope. "You want your own mother to sign a confession?" I said I wanted my name back. She dropped the quarters of my offer in the trash under the sink and washed her hands, a full lather, like the paper had been raw chicken, and when she turned around her voice was silk again. "We are not those people, Jada. We handle things. You of all people should know that. You're the one always fixing." I drove home. By Thursday, my phone was warm with aunties. "Sweetie, we heard you've been struggling. Money trouble, baby? Your mama's worried sick. Don't you take it out on her, not in an anniversary year." I sat in my parked car outside my own building and understood. She'd told the family I was struggling 2 days before I'd found the loan. My mother doesn't play defense. She plays first. The invitation came that Saturday, in an envelope heavy as a dinner plate. Cream cardstock, gold letters pressed so deep you could read them with your thumb. 40 years of Raymond and Vivian Calloway, the Marquette Ballroom. June the 14th. An evening of gratitude. I stood at my mailbox and laughed, one ugly note of it, alone in the lobby. An evening of gratitude, deposit $9,000, financed by the guest of honor's daughter without her knowledge. Then I turned it over, and the laugh died. On the back, in my mother's fountain pen cursive, one short line of command dressed as affection. "Family sits in front, sweetheart." Mama. I should have thrown it away. Instead, I did the thing I still can't fully explain. I carried it upstairs and pinned it to my refrigerator with a magnet from Grandma Ruth's church, and it hung there through everything that came after. Gold letters watching me eat cereal. June the 14th. Every fraud I have ever worked has an event sitting at the center of it like a stone in a peach. A wedding, a funeral, a retirement. Some date so heavy with appearances that people will sign anything rather than cancel it. I had 5.5 weeks until my family's stone. And one bookkeeping question kept nagging me, the kind that starts as a footnote and ends as a headline. The ballroom, the quartet, the florist, the photographer. Open bar for 200. I priced it out on a sticky note, conservative, and landed near $28,000. The refinance money was long gone. I'd traced every dollar to its grave. The cards in my name were full. So what exactly was paying for June the 14th? Grandma Ruth asked me to drive her to her foot doctor that Wednesday, which I understood to be a summons, since Ruth Ellison has never needed anybody for anything. In the car she was quiet until 95th Street, and then she said, "You know about the check?" I didn't. So she told me. In 1983, Greater Bethel raised money for the new sanctuary, and every family pledged, and the pledges were read aloud. That was the custom, an old cruel custom, money out loud in church. My mother was 21, 3 years from marrying my father, working a register and engaged to a CTA man. She pledged $200 she almost had. The check bounced. And Sister Odell, first pew, fox collar coat, stood up the following Sunday and asked the congregation to pray for families who make promises their pocketbooks can't keep, and had my mother stand, by name, so the church could love on her. Ruth's voice stayed level as a spirit level. Your mama stood up in that pew and smiled through the whole prayer, thanked them after. Never cried, not once, not even home. She just told me, Mama, they will never see me struggle again. And I have watched her keep that promise for 40 years like it was her wedding vow. We rode a block in silence. I hated Sister Odell, dead 20 years, with a heat that surprised me, and I understood my mother completely, and it changed nothing, and I hated that too. That understanding a wound doesn't unload the gun it bought. At the doctor's office door, Ruth gripped my wrist with her small iron hand. Whatever it is you're fixing to do, baby, do it before that party ruins somebody else's child too. She would not say another word about it. The background check landed early. Of course it did. The one deadline in my life I'd have paid to delay came in ahead of schedule. My managing partner called me in on a Friday and closed the door, which at my firm is its own sentence. The vetting company had flagged me, 2 revolving accounts at their limits, 1 mortgage 60 days delinquent, subject provided no disclosure. He slid the summary across the desk and asked, kindly, in the voice you use near something cracked, whether everything was all right at home. I told him the truth. Identity theft, an investigation underway, my own name, the crime scene. He believed me. That's the mercy in this beat. He believed me instantly. And then he said, the thing kindness can't soften. Pending resolution, I was off the federal case. My testimony had become a door the defense could walk through. Any competent attorney would waive my credit report at the jury and ask why the government's fraud expert can't keep her own house in order. 30 days, he said. Bring documentation that this is a crime, a police report, an FTC affidavit, something with a case number on it, and the firm would stand behind me all the way. Nothing with a case number, and he couldn't protect my role. Maybe not my licenses either, and we both knew the licenses were the floor my whole life stood on. I walked back to my office and sat looking at the skyline I'd earned one audit at a time. To stay silent was to lose my career. To keep my career, I needed a report. A report needs names. And I only had 3 to give. My mother, my father, my brother. That night I filled out the FTC identity theft affidavit at my kitchen table, under the gold stare of the invitation on my refrigerator. Federal form, calm, blue boxes. Name of person who misused your information. Relationship to you. I typed my mother's name and my hands were steady, which frightened me more than shaking would have. I knew precisely what I was holding because I've built these referrals for banks. Aggravated identity theft carries a mandatory 2-year sentence, stacked on top of whatever the fraud itself earns. Not maximum. Mandatory. Judges can't waive it. I sat with my finger over the trackpad, cursor parked on submit, and I gave the other side its full closing argument. She's 63. The church. Dad's back. Maya's graduation year. Ruth living in that house. 40 years of a woman outrunning one bounced check. Who files on their own mother? I was actually crying by then. I'd earned it. When my phone buzzed against this table. The credit monitoring I'd reinstalled, doing its one job. New hard inquiry on your Experian file. Tonight. A finance company I'd never heard of. Application amount, $45,000. Purpose: listed in the lender's category code, clean as a knife. Special event financing. I stopped crying. It's a strange mercy, the way clarity dries your face. They knew I'd found the cards. They knew I'd found the loan. I'd put it in their hands, printed, stapled, torn in quarters under their sink. And with all of that known, on the very night I sat weeping over the submit button, my family was downtown in my name renting a ballroom. People say the moment changes you. It doesn't. The moment just shows you the change already happened, and mine had. I closed the laptop. Filing deserved daylight. Monday, 8:04 in the morning, I submitted the FTC affidavit from my office before my coffee cooled, because I'd learned the hard way what waiting costs. The confirmation number came back instantly, bland and eternal. Then I drove to the district station on 111th Street and sat on a plastic chair between a stolen catalytic converter and a custody dispute, holding a folder with my whole family in it. The desk officer sent me to a detective's cubicle, where for an hour and 40 minutes, a tired, careful man typed while I talked. He'd seen it before. He told me familial identity theft crosses his desk more than strangers ever do. But his eyebrows went up at my exhibits, tabbed and Bates numbered, because nobody brings him a case pre-built. At the end, he read it back in cop grammar, flat as asphalt. Suspects: mother, Vivian Calloway. Father, Raymond Calloway. Brother, Darnell Calloway. Is that correct? There are sentences you can't take back, and answering that one is how I learned the shape of mine. Correct. The printer hummed. A case number existed where my family used to be. That same afternoon, I mailed the whole packet. Affidavit, police report, forged page 9, my pattern folder on Terrence Vaughn. To the loan servicer's fraud unit, certified mail, return receipt requested, and hand-delivered a copy to my firm's counsel. No trumpets. Fraud dies in paperwork, the same way it's born there. I sat in my car in the police station parking lot afterward and let myself feel the size of it. Somewhere in a gold-lettered planner across town, my mother was confirming string quartets and tasting cakes. Neither of us knew we had exactly 29 days left as mother and daughter, or that the last real conversation we'd ever have would happen in a service hallway, over a typed piece of paper and a pen. Only one of us was counting days at all. The loan servicer's fraud unit called me in 9 days later, which in servicer time is a sprint, and I understood why when I saw the conference room, 2 investigators, a recorder, and my certified packet already flagged with their own tabs. They expected a victim. They got a colleague. I walked them through it the way I'd walk a jury. No adjectives, just arithmetic. Here is the forged signature, and here is my verified exemplar. Here is the notarization certifying I appeared in person, and here is the court reporter's log placing me in a deposition 12 miles away at that hour. Here is where the wires went. And then I slid across the document I'd built at 2 in the morning with my hair tied up and my heart in a drawer. 11 other refinances, pulled from public records, all notarized by Terrence Vaughn, all carrying a remote co-borrower with pristine credit, all inside 31 months. 11 families. 11 someones like me, most of whom, statistically, had no idea yet. The senior investigator, a gray-haired woman with a linebacker's handshake, read the pattern memo twice without speaking. Then she took her glasses off. Ms. Calloway, who prepared this analysis? I told her she was looking at her. She was quiet a moment. In 14 years, nobody has ever handed me their own case gift-wrapped. She tapped the memo. This doesn't stay here. This goes up. I asked what up meant, though I already knew. When a fraud stops being one family's shame and starts being a pattern across federally insured loans, it stops belonging to a servicer's back office. Up has a field office on Roosevelt Road. Up carries handcuffs in the trunk of a gray sedan. I signed their releases, shook their hands, and rode the elevator down doing the one piece of math I'd been refusing to do all week. What Up would cost the 3 names I shared a Thanksgiving table with. Agent Elena Delgado had a corner cubicle, a Cubs mug, and the unhurried voice of a woman who has heard every possible version of I never thought my family would. She interviewed me for 3 hours. Financial crimes, she explained, had already been circling Terrence Vaughn. My pattern memo hadn't started the fire, it had handed them the map to 11 doors at once, and mine happened to be one of them. Then she did me the courtesy no one else had. She told me the truth in numbers. Bank fraud. Up to 30 years per count on paper. Far less in practice, but please would be likely, and please still mean prison. Aggravated identity theft. 2 years mandatory? Stacked. No judicial mercy available even if the judge's own mother is in the gallery. Restitution? Forfeiture. Your parents will probably plead, she said. Your brother's exposure is worse, and there will be arrests. We don't send invitations. I asked her the only question I had left. Will you tell me when? She shook her head, not unkindly. No. And you should be nowhere near any of them when it happens. Understood? I said understood, which was true, and felt like agreement, which it turned out not to be. In the parking lot on Roosevelt Road, I sat in my car and let my forehead rest on the wheel. 3 seconds. That's the allowance I gave myself. And when I lifted it, my phone showed 6 missed calls from Darnell, stacked like a hand pounding a door. Not Mom. Not Dad. Darnell, the family's self-appointed strategist, calling 6 times in 1 hour. The servicer, I knew from my own casework, sends borrowers a letter the moment a loan goes into fraud review. The letters had landed in Beverly. The clock I'd started at a plastic desk on 111th Street was now ticking out loud, in everyone's kitchen at once. Darnell was leaning against the pillar by my parking spot when I pulled into my building's garage that evening, and I want to be fair to my brother here. He didn't come to threaten me. He came to manage me, which in his mind is a kindness. Jaybird, whatever's happening with the bank, you can unhappen it. 1 phone call. Tell them it's a family mix-up. I told him there was a forged signature with my name on it, and forged isn't a mix-up, it's a felony with penmanship. He pushed off the pillar, and the salesman fell away from his face, and underneath was something I recognized from every failed venture he'd ever pitched at dinner. Fear. Wearing ambition's jacket. You think you're the only one carrying weight? I've been holding this family together with string, and you drive your German car in from the loop and audit us. Then, because my brother has never once known where the last line is, he crossed it. You don't hear Maya complaining, and her card's nearly full too. The garage went very quiet, the way rooms do for me now. Maya, his daughter, 17 years old, honor roll, college applications due in the fall. I asked him, slowly, to say that again, and some animal instinct in him understood, and he tried to walk it back. It's nothing. A starter card, we'll clear it before school. She'll never even miss it. She'll never miss it. My family's whole gospel in one hand-me-down sentence, moving down a generation while I stood there holding my keys. And then he actually said it, my mother's vow, in my mother's cadence, like a boy reciting his catechism. We handle things quiet, Jay. We never let them see us struggle. I looked at my brother a long time. No, I said. You never let me stop paying so you don't have to. Upstairs, I texted Agent Delgado 1 line. There's a minor involved. The summons came dressed as brunch. Sunday, Beverly, just family. Mama's making her lemon pound cake. And I went, eyes open, because you should see the machine work once before it's dismantled. It wasn't brunch. It was a tribunal with doilies, both aunts flanking the sofa, Pastor Reeves's assistant minister in the wing chair, Darnell standing at parade rest by the mantel, and my mother presiding in her Sunday suit, wearing the brave face of a woman enduring a wayward child for an audience. She never accused me of anything. That's not her instrument. She simply arranged facts like flowers. Jada's under so much pressure. They took her off a big case at work. Did you hear? She's been going through the family's private business, making lists. We think. And here her voice broke. One clean professional crack. We think she needs help before she does something she can't take back. Heads nodded around the room like pigeons. My Aunt Renee reached over and squeezed my knee with tears already staged in her eyes. Baby, whatever this is, Don't you tear this family down over paperwork. I want you to know I considered it. Laying page 9 on the coffee table next to the pound cake, watching the room read the word forged. I didn't. Court is where evidence goes. Living rooms are where it gets explained away. So I stood, smoothed my skirt, and gave them the only closing statement they were owed. June 14th, you'll all know exactly which one of us has been struggling. My mother's chin came up, the first unrehearsed movement of the afternoon, and then Ruth, who had watched the whole performance from the kitchen doorway with her arms folded, walked me to the front door in full view of the congregation of the sofa, took my face in her 2 small hands, and kissed my forehead. Slow, deliberate, like a signature on a document everyone present could read. 2 days out, Agent Delgado called, with a request wrapped in a warning. Whatever your plans are this weekend, Ms. Calloway, I'd stay away from large family gatherings for a while. She couldn't say more, and didn't need to. I'd handed the government its timeline, and the government had just handed me mine. Warrants were signed or close to it. Soon meant soon. I said I understood, and this time, I meant to obey. I took the invitation off my refrigerator to throw it away, actually stood over the trash can with it, gold letters up. Family sits in front, sweetheart. And then my phone rang. And it was Ruth. And my grandmother does not call to chat. You coming Saturday? I started to explain, carefully, that it might be better if... And she cut me off with the patience of a woman who's buried a husband, 3 sisters, and every illusion she ever had. Jada, I have sat through 40 years of your mother's productions. I sat through the christening she staged for the church page. I sat through that funeral she turned into a debutante ball. Saturday, whatever's coming is coming with me in the room, and I want my grandbaby in the chair next to mine when the lights come on. I looked at the invitation in my hand for a long moment. My mother told me to stay home if I couldn't afford it. I had paid for the deposit, the minimum payments, the whole gilded machine of it, with my name, my credit, and my 30-day career review. Nobody in that ballroom had paid more for a ticket than I had. I pinned the invitation back on the refrigerator and told Ruth I'd be there. If you're still with me this deep into the story, you're my kind of people. Subscribe if you believe quiet women aren't weak women, because everything my family built out of my name was about to come due in one evening, in front of 200 guests. That night, my mother texted me, "No greeting, gala logistics only. Your seat is paid for. Wear the gold. Family sits in front. Paid for." She still didn't hear herself. Paid for with what, Mama? Paid for with whom? The Marquette Ballroom on June the 14th looked exactly like 40 years of never letting them see you struggle. White hydrangeas in towers, because of course hydrangeas. A string quartet in the corner playing the kind of music that sounds like money washing its hands. 200 guests in their gala best, the whole third-row pew economy of our world. Aunties in metallic wraps, deacons in good suits, sister circle ladies doing laps with their phones out. And on a screen behind the head table, a slideshow cycled through 4 decades of Calloway excellence. The wedding photo, the Beverly house the year they bought it, Easter lineups, Darnell's franchise ribbon cutting, my graduation, my mother beaming beside my cap and gown, front and center closest to the camera. I stood at the back in the gold dress she'd commanded and did the thing I do, the thing I am, the thing this whole story is about. I priced it. The towers of hydrangeas, rented china, quartet, open bar, photographer with the drone. I ran the ledger in my head, and every line item traced back through a forged page 9 to a signature some stranger's hand had wobbled through in my name. And half these vendors, I'd have bet my licenses, were holding invoices nobody intended to pay. I was standing inside my own stolen credit, and it was beautiful, and the room loved it. My father found me first, pressed my shoulder, didn't quite meet my eyes. Darnell steered wide of me, checking the doors the way debtors check doors. Ruth held court at the front table in her navy suit, spine straight as a hymn. Then the quartet hushed, and my mother took the microphone in a champagne-colored gown, radiant, easy, home at last on the one stage she'd spent her whole life building, and opened her mouth to thank God and everyone for 40 years of a family that has never owed anybody anything. The room laughed warmly and lifted its glasses. And through the glass doors behind the last row of tables, out in the lobby, I watched two gray sedans pull up to the curb and park in a line. They came in quietly, which is the detail nobody believes when I tell it. No raid jackets, no shouting, no hands on holsters. 4 people in unremarkable suits walked into the lobby of the Marquette, and one of them showed a credential wallet to the events manager, and the events manager's face did the thing faces do when the evening changes owners. Through the glass I recognized Agent Delgado, hair down, almost festive, and beside her a younger agent carrying a folio the way I carry exhibits. Inside the ballroom, the toast rolled on, glasses up, my mother mid-sentence about God's faithfulness. Darnell saw them before anyone else did. Debtors always do. He set down his champagne with exaggerated calm, kissed some auntie's cheek, and began drifting toward the kitchen doors with the studied casualness of a man leaving a burning building at a walk. He made it about 10 feet. The younger agent stepped through the service entrance ahead of him. They'd mapped the exits, of course they had. I'd have mapped the exits. And said something brief. And my brother stopped moving the way a check stops clearing. Still no scene. The room hadn't even noticed yet. 200 people were watching a slideshow of themselves. But my mother noticed. From the head table, mid-toast, microphone still live, Vivian Calloway looked across her beautiful room and saw the suits in her lobby. And I watched her read the whole sentence in one glance. Servicer letters, the visit from investigators, my empty chair at brunch, June the 14th. She never stopped smiling. That's the part I'll be explaining to therapists for years. Her smile held. She wrapped the toast to applause, said something graceful about needing 1 family minute, handed the microphone to the MC, and came down off the platform straight toward me, glowing, unhurried, waving at guests as she came. Then her hand closed around my wrist like a zip tie, and she walked me through the service door into the back hallway, past the racked chafing dishes, and stopped under the fluorescent light where the quartet couldn't follow. From inside her beaded clutch, she drew a single folded sheet of paper and a pen, and she laid them on the stainless steel prep table between us like a place setting. The paper was typed, dated, and short. I, Jada Michelle Calloway, confirm that I authorized my parents and brother to open and use the accounts and loans in my name, and that no fraud occurred. A signature line. My name printed under it, correctly for once. She'd had it ready. Maybe for days, maybe since the servicer's first letter. Tucked in a beaded clutch next to her lipstick, waiting for the night her 2 worlds finally arrived in the same room. Sign it, my mother said, and her voice was the one from my childhood fevers, low and warm and certain. And you're my daughter again. Those men will walk out the back, and this stays a misunderstanding. Monday will fix all of it, quietly. Family money, family business, the way we handle things. Refuse. And here she finally faltered, half a breath, the only crack I ever saw. And you will stand in that room alone for the rest of your life, Jada. They will remember you as the girl who did this. Not one of them will ever sit at a table with you again. Here is what I want you to understand about that moment. She wasn't wrong, and I knew the price on both lines, because pricing things is what I do. Sign, and the debts became legally mine, nearly $250,000, my career gone the day the recantation hit the file, my expert credibility unrecoverable. But my mother's hand on my cheek again. Christmas again. My name spoken gently in that house again. Refuse, and keep my name, my license, my truth. And lose every person in that ballroom in a single evening permanently, no appeal. Want against need, laid out on stainless steel under fluorescent light. I looked at her hands, still lovely at 63, the hands that wrote family sits in front, sweetheart. And I understood, at last and all the way, that she was offering me the same bargain the world had offered her at 21 in that pew. Pay anything, sign anything, so they never see us struggle. She'd taken that deal and been paying it for 40 years, and the picture had slowly eaten her husband, her son, her granddaughter, and me. Somebody had to decline. I picked up the pen. Her whole body leaned toward it, and I set it back down on the far side of the paper, out of my own reach. "You built my name, Mama," I said. "You don't get to spend it." She stared at me. I opened the hallway door and the quartet spilled in, and over my shoulder I gave her back the family vow, revised. They're going to see us struggle now. What happened in the ballroom took 11 minutes, and I stood in the front of the room for all of them, next to my grandmother's chair, exactly where the invitation said, "Family sits." Agent Delgado's team moved with a courtesy that was somehow worse than force. Low voices, a hand indicating rather than gripping, the practiced choreography of people who arrest fathers at parties more often than anyone wants to know. They reached Darnell first at the kitchen doors. His one flare, "This is a private event, you can't," died halfway out, and after that he went smaller than I'd ever seen him, nodding at the carpet while the cuffs went on in front, an agent's jacket draped over his wrists like a dinner napkin. My father stood up from the head table before they even reached him. That's the image I keep. Raymond Calloway rising on his bad back, buttoning his suit jacket the way he did for church, and putting his hands out plainly, no jacket over them, refusing the mercy of the draping. He looked past the agent, found me at the front, and nodded once. Not an apology, not absolution, just the first honest thing between us since the diner on Western acknowledgement, at last, in front of witnesses. My mother came through the service door 30 seconds behind me, and she did it her way, because there was only ever her way. Chin high, gown gathered in one hand, smiling left and right at her frozen guests as though headed to the valet early. She let them cuff her the way queens let themselves be helped into carriages. The room had gone the kind of silent that has a texture. 200 people not chewing, the quartet holding their bows off the strings. And then my Aunt Renee's voice tore across it, shrill with the grief of a collapsing story. "Jada, did you know about this?" Every face in the marquette turned to me. The gold dress, the front row, the daughter. I did not raise my voice. I'd learned from the calmest woman I know that you never have to. If you're willing to say it plainly, I'm the one who filed the report. 100 small sounds happened at once, and none of them were words. Beside me, Ruth Ellison rose out of her chair on her cane, took my hand, and addressed the room at large in her spirit-level voice. "Then she's the only Calloway here who paid for her seat." My phone started buzzing before the sedans cleared the curb, and it did not meaningfully stop for 3 days. I'm told the video a cousin took from table 14 made it around 3 states by Sunday night. The family group chat performed its autopsy without me, and then went silent to me altogether. 2 aunts blocked my number by Monday. Somebody's daughter I used to babysit posted a Bible verse about Judas with no caption. At Greater Bethel, I learned secondhand. I am now and forever the girl who ruined the anniversary. Fine. Titles are free. I know what things cost. The legal machinery, once it had everyone's attention, moved the way it actually moves. In months, in conference rooms, in signatures. Terrence Vaughn, facing 12 loan files and the math of a cooperation credit, flipped before the leaves turned and handed the government the whole pattern, tied with a bow. After that, the pleas came in a quiet row. Darnell took 41 months, federal, bank fraud and the identity count, his exposure the worst because his fingerprints were on the machinery itself. My mother took 30 months. She wore cream to the plea hearing and thanked the judge with terrifying poise. My father's lawyer, with my written support, the only thing I could give him that was still mine to give, carved his role down to what it truly was, a man who signed where his wife pointed, and Raymond Calloway got 3 years probation and a restitution number with a comma in it that he will be paying past 80. The loan servicer, holding my affidavit, the forgery analysis, and Vaughn's confession, formally removed me from the refinance and scrubbed the phantom cards from my file. Maya was certified a minor victim. Her record starts clean at 18. My firm reinstated me the week the indictments landed, review closed, licenses intact, and the $210,000 loan, with no one left to pretend to pay it, defaulted for good. And 16 months after the gala. The Brick Colonial in Beverly, hydrangeas and all, went to the county's judicial sale. Which brings me to the last thing I ever expected to do. 16 months after the gala, on a Tuesday morning, a judicial sale officer in a government gray office read out a case number, and a limited liability company called Halstead Row LLC bid $281,000 for a brick colonial in Beverly, and nobody bid higher, and the gavel, which is really just a stamp and a docket entry, nothing cinematic, came down. Halstead Row LLC is me. It's my savings. 11 years of them, plus a loan against my own condo. My numbers, as my father would say, except attached to my actual self. Reviewed by my actual eyes, signed in my actual hand. No one in the family knew. The first thing I did with the keys was drive to the assisted living facility where Ruth had landed when the house emptied out, and put them in her small iron hand, and tell her the first floor was hers again, hydrangeas included, for as long as she wanted, which she has informed me will be a while because she intends to outlive everyone out of spite. She moved home in October. I kept the magnet from her church. It's on that refrigerator now, in that kitchen, holding up nothing. Some nights I stand in the living room where the sofa tribunal convened, and I can hear how quiet a house gets when nobody in it is performing. My mother told me once, in that same kitchen, in front of the whole family, if you can't afford it, stay home. She was right about one thing in the end. They couldn't afford it. The picture, the ballroom, the borrowed shine, none of it. I could. I'd been paying for it all along, so I stayed. Home just belongs to me now. Maya turned 18 in the spring. Her birthday present from Aunt Jada was not a check. We sat at my kitchen table, the Beverly kitchen table because that's where the family does its paperwork now, and we froze her credit at all 3 bureaus, set her own pins, chose security questions whose answers live in no one's memory but hers, and pulled her first clean report, which we read together like a good report card. She's at Illinois now, studying, God help us all, accounting. Her father writes her from federal prison. She answers when she answers, and I stay out of it. My mother writes me too. The first letter came in November. Cream envelope, lovely hand, my name on it in fountain pen. It's in the drawer with the others now, unopened. Not burned? The drawer. That's the honest size of where we are. At Greater Bethel, I'm told, certain ladies still drop their voices when I'm mentioned, and the gala circuit spins on without me, and 2 aunts will go to their graves calling me what they call me. The machine I was raised inside is still running. It just doesn't run on me anymore. Or on Maya. That's the whole victory. And it's enough. Here is the one thing I know now that I didn't know, standing at that kitchen counter, nodding at a woman holding a travel brochure. Family isn't the people who share your name. Family is the people who would never, ever spend it. That's my story. 4 plane tickets, 1 signature I refused to give, and a house that finally learned my real name. If this reminded you to pull your credit report, or to stop paying for a seat at somebody else's table, take it as a sign and do it this week. If you know a quiet woman carrying a loud family, share this video with her, drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.